Well, folks, as many of you know, those are regular listeners of my podcast, you know that I'm not one for pop culture. You guys have heard me share many times before about how I have been able to meet people in airports or as I travel, share the gospel with people like Ray Liotta, Tony Ramos, Keith Eliason, and had no idea who these people are. So this is actually a treat for me because this is one of the few times that I've bumped into someone. I've actually sat in an airplane next to now I forgot his name on Huckabee, Mike Huckabee, sat and didn't even recognize him until someone mentioned him. So this is the first that I actually recognize somebody, and not for what he's most known for, probably. But I was in an airport. I ran into, I saw someone. I said, "Yeah, it really looks very familiar." Pulled my wife aside. I said, "Hun," I pulled up the IMDb. Said, "Doesn't this look like him?" She's like, "Yeah." And I knew you from God Is Not Dead, but you're most known for your role as Hercules. Welcome to the show, Kevin Sorbo.
It's good to be here. Yeah. Hercules, pardon the sin of pride here, but by a 7-year run down in New Zealand, and we were in 176 countries, and by season 3, we became the most watched show in the world. So I had to throw it out there because how many people can actually say they've been part of a show that was the most watched show in the world? So, and then I followed it up with Gene Roddenberry's Andromeda, and I'm a big Star Trek fan. So my character, Captain Dylan Hunt, was the first captain ever created by Gene Roddenberry back in 1969 when the original Star Trek series got canceled. But I got to tell you, I travel a lot and go through hotels and restaurants and airports like I'm flying all the time. 80% of the time now, people come up to me and they say, "Hey, please make more movies like What If, God's Not Dead, Soul Surfer, Let There Be Light." It's not Hercules anymore. People want to see more movies like this that have a positive message, and boy, do we need that in today's world.
Well, one of the people that was there, that I guess she came up and took a photo with you, and she actually is on my flight. It became a gospel conversation, which I tried to turn all of them into that. But the neat thing is she was like, "Yeah," she didn't even remember your name. She's like, I got a picture with Hercules." So, you should check out some of the other movies he's done. So I was able to name some of the other movies you've done to try to get her to see, God's Not Dead or some of the others. And you and I have some mutual friends with Ray Comfort and some another actor that, Kirk Cameron, who used to live up where you used to live.
Yeah, he was just down the road from me. Yeah, his kids and my kids run the same track team together and all that. So it was, I've known Kirk a long time.
So let me start with that, because one of the things I thought interesting with your background, you met your wife on set the way Kirk did, at least on set. You've both met. How did you, and because folks that listen to the Christian podcast community, your wife has been on one of our other podcasts, on the Schoolhouse Rocked.
Sure.
And she's been, I think 3 or 4 times she's been a guest on there. So how did you and your wife meet?
It was on Hercules. I joke about it with her. She probably doesn't like it, but she lets me say it. Every episode they sent down a pretty girl for me to work with. So it was a great dating service for me. And then she came down there at the end of season 4, and we just hit it off right away. I mean, and I'm an incredible flirt. And the very first night of filming was the last scene of the episode, where we have to say this tearful goodbye to each other. And there's a kiss, and then I walk away into, the hero walking into the sunset, and so I walk up to her and I said, "Sam, what about this kiss? Maybe we should practice it." She looks at me. And then I asked her, I said, "How are we going to make this work? My gosh." And she said, "What are you talking about?" I go, "Well, I'm in New Zealand, you're in LA. We got this water hazard called the Pacific Ocean between us. I don't know how we're going to make this work." She laughs. She goes, "Kevin, I don't date actors, and I certainly don't date guys with long hair," because my hair was really long back in that series. And I said, "Well, right now I'm making a pretty good living with the long hair." But I wore her down, and I finally got a date with her the following weekend. And I picked her up at the hotel we always put the actors in. And she gets in my car, and I had a country music station on. She goes, "Country music?" And I said, "Well, I like all kinds of music, but it's the only country music station in all of New Zealand. If you want to change it." She goes, No, I love country music." We go out and we're talking. And then I said something, and she said, "Wait a minute. Are you conservative?" I go, "Yeah, I'm pretty conservative. My politics are definitely lean to the right." Talked a little bit more, and I said something else. She goes, Hold on. "Are you a Christian?" I said, "Yeah, I've been a Christian my whole life." She says, "Wait a second. Christian, conservative, country music, the 3 C's. Kevin, I think I'm in love with you." And that's how the relationship started. We got engaged within 6 months and married a year after that.
Wow. Yeah.
Now, 23 years and 3 kids. Here we are.
Yeah. Now if you've talked to Kirk, you know the story of how his first kiss with his wife.
No, I don't know that part.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. I know they were on the show together.
Yeah. They were on the show. He was so nervous. He put, I forget the name of it, the stuff that you put for teething kids for when their teeth are teething. And he numbed his lips. And he numbed his lips so bad when he gave the kiss, it numbed her lips and they had to redo the scene.
Oh, that's funny.
And I said, Kirk, you were just trying to get another kiss out of the deal.
What does the numbing the lips supposed to do? I don't get it.
He was just so nervous about kissing her because this was the first kiss he was gonna do. She's actually his, the first girl he was with. And
wow.
So, yeah.
That's funny.
Yeah, he's got a lot of funny stories.
Well, we did the kissing scene. And then I looked at the director and I said, "Could we do that one more time? I think I didn't do it quite right."
Tilt my head the other way a little.
I know. I said, I think I need to try it one more time.
Did you do, how many takes of the kissing scene did you do?
I think we just like 2. I mean, it was, the show was, we shot like 10-day episodes and they were, long days. They were 12 to 14-hour days. And I was lifting weights 2 hours a day. And it was typical for me to be about 16 to 17 hours door to door in that show. But I loved it. And New Zealand's beautiful. And I worked with an amazing crew that all of them went on to work on Lord of the Rings. And half of them ended up winning Academy Awards for Lord of the Rings. But it was a great chapter in my life. And I'll tell you one thing I liked about what they did, even though it's mythology, the writers always put in really good moral messages in there. And I got that through the fan mail coming in, which was great. So I mean, I always appreciated that because I thought, it was such a show that if we take ourselves seriously, number one, people are going to laugh at us. We want to make sure people laugh with us. That's why we had goofy fight scenes and, we also had a lot of humor in there, but they also had good messages in there as well. And I really appreciated that. And I think that sort of is what I wanted to do anyway. And I think it sort of set the groundwork for what I did later in life.
Yeah. I mean, one of the things I just want to ask is when you're known as being Hercules, now later in life, do you still work out so that you can, still look like you got that same body that you had?
Oh man, I don't got that same body. I'm the show finished 21 years ago. I shot that series all through my 30s. So you can figure out my age now, but I still work out every day. I just got done working out here about an hour ago. And I love to work out, but it's hard. I could not do probably 60-70% of the stunts I used to do on Hercules, but I'm still love to stay in shape.
You're known for being having a good hard work ethic. I mean, it was interesting when I went on to IMDb to see some of what your work is. You have 147 credits there on different things you've worked on. And I was like, that is an amazing list. And I mean, like there's several for every year. So how do you even keep that kind of schedule?
Well, I got to tell you, I shot Hercules and Andromeda 12 straight years from 1993 to 2005. And then I started doing movies and independent movies for the most part. I started questioning people on the set because I got tired of the hypocrisy and the attacks on conservatives, on the attacks on Christians and all that. So I just got tired of saying, okay, I'm not going to sit in the corner here. Let's talk about this without being, confrontational. I said, well, why do you feel that way? And it got out and it became more and more me posting things on Twitter and Facebook. My wife said, it's going to hurt you. And sure enough, my agent called me in about 10 years ago and said, we can't work with you anymore. I went, why? Well, it's because you're conservative and Christian. That's tough in this business. People don't want to work with you. And I went, wow. I'm in an industry, as you know, and you've heard this yourself. You don't have to be in it. They're the ones who scream for tolerance all the time.
Yeah.
You got to be tolerant of this, of that, of the other thing. Freedom of speech. It's all a one-way street with these guys. And I told them that. And I said, well, it's sad, guys, because I don't harbor that kind of anger and hate that you guys have towards people like me. I mean, Christianity and conservatism in Hollywood is like being a double leper. So this is what I got to deal with. And I formed my own company and I just started doing my own movies and people started calling me independent movies. And it just sort of fed on itself. And so I've been shooting about 4 movies a year on average. The last 3 or 4 years, I've really gotten into documentaries, which I love doing as well. Just finished another one. I did one called Before the Wrath. It's on the Book of Revelation. I highly recommend it to people. It's a wonderful educational look at the rapture. And the same guys came to me now and they just finished filming. I'll be narrating very soon that one as well. It's called Eating with the Enemy. I love that title. It deals with the Last Supper. So that's going to come out around Christmas time. So, I mean, Easter. So I'm staying busy with that kind of stuff. And I'm prepping right now, just last night, reading the script, making notes on the next Left Behind movie. We're filming that up in Canada, and I'll be directing and acting in that one. So I hope people will be looking for that sometime next year.
Yeah, and when we met, you also said you were doing a documentary in Israel. You were going to be going to Israel.
Yeah, it all got moved around because the craziness of COVID. It's like fear is such an amazing weapon, and they're using it at every level against us to, make sure that people can't have a life anymore. But so now we're shooting. I think it's going to be mid or late January, because they've just discovered through an archaeological dig the oldest temple they've ever found. So we're going to be in Jordan for that, and a little bit in Israel. And I've got another one that I shot there a couple of years ago called Against the Tide with John Lennox. So I highly recommend Against the Tide. Go to againstthetide.movie. And the other one's beforethewrath.com. So check those out. But Against the Tide is with John Lennox. He's an apologist, retired math professor. So you know who he is. He's a great guy.
Mm-hmm.
And we spent 3 weeks in Oxford, England, 2 weeks in Israel. And I play the guy that, questions that a Christian would ask, an agnostic, and an atheist would ask. So, he just takes over from there. I just throw these questions at him as we're walking, following in the footsteps of Jesus. And it was a really good documentary. It's about proving God in a world of science. And once again, it's called Against the Tide.
Yeah, he's really good as an apologist.
Great guy. Yeah.
So, you mentioned in Hollywood. This was the thing I remember, talking with Kirk about is, what's it like being someone in Hollywood that's worse than being conservative, having the Christian label?
It's amazing to me. Hollywood used to be a pretty conservative place. And if you remember, they did, like, up until the 60s and the 50s, they were shooting Ben-Hur and 10 Commandments and Samson and Delilah. They were doing all these kinds of things. The Warner Brothers, they were conservative guys. The 60s changed everything with the Vietnam War, the free love, the rock and roll, the band abroad. All kinds of, the racial injustice, all that stuff kind of kicked in. And all of a sudden we started doing movies that we made the anti-hero, the hero. We glorify that. Look, I love Butch Cassidy and Sundance Kid too. Robert Redford and Paul Newman are probably, the reason I want to be an actor. But the real Butch Cassidy and Sundance Kid didn't look like those guys. And they didn't quip like those guys. And they weren't nice guys. They were bad guys. But the movie, they make them charming, fun, and just like, great little, bad guy rascals, and that's what we've done. And Walt Disney said back in the 1950s that movies and television will influence our youth. Well, look where we are right now. Look at the stuff coming out. Cable, movies, everything deals with anger and hate and divisiveness. And, I do movies that, I've done 67 movies and counting. There's about a dozen I wish I didn't do. Okay. They sucked, but I didn't know they were going to suck when I did them. But, I try to do movies that have hope, love, laughter, redemption, faith, things that are positive. The reason I want to be an actor was looking at old movies, because my mom used to watch all these old black and white movies with Cary Grant and Spencer Tracy and Katharine Hepburn and all that. And I love those movies. And they had stories that you kind of go, oh man, I can relate to that guy, or I know somebody like that guy. And I want to, I like a roller coaster ride like Avengers too, but it's all visual effects, right? I want to do a movie that make people think a little bit more instead of walking out and going, great visual effects. That's what all these movies are now. So this is the road I'm on. I think the toughest thing we have is trying to raise money for them. We do movies in the 3 to 4 million range. That's catering budget on Pirates of the Caribbean. Those are $300 million movies.
Wow.
So I'm trying to do, it's like pulling teeth to raise money on these great little movies that have a positive impact on people. And I meet so many people that want these movies, people of wealth, but they'd rather spend millions on politicians that don't get elected. I'm going, guys, we have to fight the culture that Hollywood's putting out there. And the only way to do that is keep doing movies like I'm doing.
Yeah, we have to use the same means of what they use to try to take the culture. And what a lot of people don't know in the 50s and before, there actually was a pastoral board that used to review movies. And they got rid of that. And that was really, they got rid of that so that they could do all the filth that they've wanted to do.
Well, all the movies back then were G and PG for the most part. And there was always singing and dancing for whatever reason in every movie. And, but the 60s brought in the rating system, it brought in the PG-13, brought in the R and X, and brought all that stuff. So 60s changed quite a bit. We took God out of school. We passed the Welfare Reform Act that ultimately has just made the black population prisoners in their own house. And, they went from the least divorced group of people to the most kids, 80% of kids in the black community are raised without a father now.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's the thing
Our
that a
government
lot of
did
people
that.
don't want to address. They, you know, that when we talk about social justice and things like this, the one thing people don't want to address is what the root cause is. You know, the root cause, and this is irregardless of how much melanin you have in your skin.
Yeah.
It has to do with your upbringing. You raised in a single mother home. Most of these single mothers are working 2 jobs just to try to make ends meet. They don't have time for the children. Who's raising the children? The TV, the gangs. It's, you know, so, you know, and next week on, or actually this week on Apologetics Live, my other podcast, we're going to have 2 guys that were in gangs that are now in full-time ministry.
Wow.
One of which you may know, because I know you know of Living Waters, is Emil Zwane from Living Waters, Ray Comfort's son-in-law. And so, but this is, they don't have anyone to raise them. So the issue is not the oppression, because everybody's oppressed. Everyone can go to their background and look. I mean, I was raised Jewish in a very Catholic neighborhood. And yeah, we would be targeted for things. I was always picked on because I was Jewish. You stand out in that. And so, yeah, I can sit there and say I'm oppressed, but the difference is I had a good family upbringing, and my father said, no, don't just sit there and whine about it. Use that to improve, be better, prove everyone wrong then. And that was always a thing. I don't hear that message. And that's the message I do hear in your movies of good, godly principles.
Yeah, I've been fortunate to be. You really started with What If. If people haven't seen What If, I highly recommend it. In my book, it's in my top 5 easily. It's a better movie than God's Not Dead. Same writers, came out about 2.5 years earlier. PureFlix just didn't do that great a job promoting it, but it's difficult. I said independent movies don't have $100 million budget to get out there and promote it. So you got to rely on word of mouth, and God's Not Dead just exploded. That was an anomaly in the independent world. But What If, Dallas Jenkins directed it. Dallas is now doing The Chosen right now. We've always been friends. Our kids are the same age as mine. And when we were still living in LA, he was there before he moved to Chicago. Now he's living in Dallas full time. But he sent me the script. He said, "What do you think?" After I read it, and I said, "Dude, who's playing Pastor Ben?" And he starts listing actors. I said, No, I'm playing. He goes, "Man, I can't afford you. This is such a low budget movie." I said, No. I'm playing this role. This movie made me laugh, made me cry. I'm on an airplane reading this. The guy next to me is going, "You okay?" Because I'm sitting there reading, I'm getting emotional, but I'm laughing at the same time. And I said, "I've got to play this part." And it's just a wonderful, wonderful movie. And that was back in 2010. That really is what kicked me off wanting to do more movies. I hate calling faith-based movies. I want to do family-friendly movies. What the Kendrick brothers do is great, but I find it just preaches to the choir, which is fine. They do great movies. I want to do movies like Blindside, movies like Green Book. The message is there, but it's not like you better believe in Jesus or you're going to hell, because that turns off the people that we're trying to reach, right? They sit there to me all the time and sit there, I meet agnostics, atheists. I got friends in those categories too. And they go, trouble is, the Christians have a rep that they're so perfect, and we're not perfect. None of us are perfect in any way. So I sit there and go, okay, let's do movies that have a positive message out there without all the hate and anger, but reach out to people and sort of sneak up on them. My latest movie, Miracle in East Texas, is coming in theaters in February next year. And it's a wonderful true story set in 1930 about 2 con men played by myself and John Ratzenberger. They would go through Oklahoma and Texas, wooing widows out of their money on fake oil wells. True story, right in the heart of the Depression, 1930. They get to Kilgore, Texas. They strike oil, largest oil fund in the history of the world. I'm not giving anything away. The title is Miracle in East Texas. But it's a wonderful, we had 10 film festivals and it won everything from best romantic comedy, the judge's favorite, the best faith-based film. I love it that they couldn't pigeonhole it, because it's the message is in there, but it's not like in your face. It sort of sneaks up on you as the movie goes along. But it's a wonderful movie. So I hope people will support that movie when it comes out in February. Maybe we should talk in February when it comes out.
Yeah, I'd love that. So now, out of all the projects you've done,
right,
which we've established our number, what would you say would be your favorite?
I love Let There Be Light. I think because I also got really close to it because I directed it as well. My wife wrote the original draft. Dan Gordon in the rewrite. Dan Gordon's an amazing writer. He was nominated for an Academy Award, original screenplay. He wrote The Hurricane, Denzel Washington's movie. He was also the showrunner on Highway to Heaven. He wrote 60 episodes of Michael Landon's series. He's Jewish, but he he actually is the oldest active member in the Israeli army. He goes over and spends about 2 months a year on the front line.
Wow.
Unbelievable. But he said Jesus is such a huge element to bring the world together, and we need that, which I thought was pretty amazing, because he practices in his faith, you know. So it's a wonderful script. Let There Be Light. It was in theaters for about 4 months. It's streaming on Amazon right now, and I play the world's greatest atheist. And God's Not Dead, I just played the typical college professor. When I say atheist college professor, I go, that's redundant. I should just say college professor. But anyway, it's this one's like a Hitchens or a Dawkins or a singer. You know, he's a big, well-known. His latest book is called Aborting God. He has a life-changing event that challenges his worldview, and it's his growth from coming from somebody that was just like a Bill Maher type of guy. So maybe there's something going on here that I gotta look into, because it's the things that I'm looking at don't add up and make sense for me. And it's a very funny, very touching movie. So I hope people check it out. And I got to tell you, I get people all the time coming through the fan site. By the way, it's sorbostudios.com. Go to sorbostudios.com. But I get people coming to me all the time, whether it's in airports and stuff like that. And the first time it happened was when God's Not Dead came out. I was at the Salt Lake City airport, and this woman walks up to me. She had her beautiful little 7-year-old daughter, and she says, "Are you Kevin Sorbo?" And I could tell by her, you know, her look and her accent, she's somewhere in the Middle East. I said, "I am." She goes, "I'm from Iraq. I live in Arizona now, but I saw your movie God's Not Dead, and because you're a movie, I became a Christian. And my daughter and I just recently got baptized." She starts crying. I start crying. My wife starts crying. We're standing up in the middle, crying in the middle of the Salt Lake City airport. My wife prays for her. And, you know, but this stuff, I get stuff like this all the time, which is really cool.
You seem to play the atheist in a lot of these movies. Why is that?
Only 2. Wait, how many times did Clint Eastwood play the same cowboy in all those westerns? And as I tell people, you're not the first person to say it, and I go, there are more than 2 atheists in the world.
No, I saw What If when it came out. I'll agree with you. I actually thought that was very, very well done.
Yeah,
I think
John Ratzenberger is great in it. John is great.
That was the first thing I saw you in outside of Hercules. I mean, I remember watching Hercules when it was on TV. And I can actually tell you when I used to watch you is, so my wife is Cantonese. So when I'd go visit her family once a month, we'd go in New York, and her family, and they would all be talking in Cantonese. And my Cantonese is not good enough that I'm getting in the conversation. So my mother-in-law had a TV and only had a couple of channels. And when we would go visit, Hercules was on. So I would watch Hercules and what's the other one? Xena, where you were on?
That was our 3rd-year spinoff show.
Yeah. And so those 2 were back to back, and that's what I would sit in there and watch while everyone's, because it was either that, I'd be doing that and reading. That's all I did.
Well, I know that I've got a tape from about 10 different countries with that language. So I have a Hercules episode in Cantonese where they dubbed my voice.
Oh, really?
And I'm really fluent in it. I was shocked how good I was. And I got French and German and Italian, and I mean, I've got all these Norwegian. I'm 2nd generation Norwegian myself.
See, so now when you travel, people expect you to know those languages because they saw you.
Yeah, I know.
They walk up to you and start speaking.
Oh man,
you know this.
Io capisco un po' l'italiano. That's about it.
Is there, what out of all the films you've done, all the projects you've worked on, are there ones that you wish got more highlighted?
Yeah, What If? Definitely, I wish got more highlighted. Abel's Field. I think Abel's Field is an amazing movie. It just, once again, it really comes down to how do you get enough money to promote it. Abel's Field is a modern day Cain and Abel meets Friday Night Lights. It's a wonderful movie. We shot it north of Austin, Texas. It's just it's a touching movie. I play a guy that's pretty much just a wanderer. I mean, the credits said, "Then a stranger." You never find out my name, and he becomes the tender of a field. He says his name is Abel, but it's really not Abel. That was his brother's name. And he's been all these decades later, he's just been traveling, and he knows God has forgiven him, but he hasn't forgiven himself for the things he's done in his past and what he did to his parents, his family, and how he left. And it's a very touching movie. So I hope people get a chance to check that out. I got another one that was in theaters recently called The Girl Who Believes in Miracles. Wonderful little movie with Mira Sorvino and Peter Coyote. And it's about a little girl, 9-year-old girl, that at church, her pastor says, if you have the faith of a mustard seed, you can move a mountain. She takes it to heart. And the faith of a child, right? So things things she prays for. She's not walking on water, but little things that happen around her little hometown. People are going, what's going on? And it's just a wonderful, touching movie about faith and about finding that redemption. Because I think right now, I look at Antifa, I look at BLM. Do you think those people out there rioting, going on streets and destroying buildings and attacking people who own those build businesses, if they had any biblical principles in their lives, would they be doing what they're doing? Of course they wouldn't be. But, we're becoming more and more secular in this country. We went to Europe a couple of years ago before the whole shutdown, and I had 3 speaking events. I had one in Zurich, one in Munich, one up in Brussels. And I looked at my wife and I said, look, these are 3 different weekends. I got 5 days off each week. Let's take a month off with the kids. So because I lived in Europe for 3.5 years. My wife was over there around the same time I was. Also at the same time, we never ran into each other, even though running the same circles. And all the churches now in Europe, they're just museums or they're discotheques. Nobody's going to church anymore. And we're well on that road in this country. But over there, it's like, forget about it. It's just sad. And it's disappearing very quickly. And we are, you can see what's playing out in the world right now and what's happening. And here we are with all these shutdowns and the fear being a weapon that's controlling everybody's lives.
Yeah. I mean, we look at Romans 1 and people always ask, are we going to bring on God's judgment? No,
it's happening right now.
We're in God's judgment.
Yeah.
And I think that's what is so phenomenal about some of the work you're doing is saying, okay, let's not, I always appreciate people that don't sit there and go, oh, woe is us. We're being oppressed. We're being, made fun of, whatever. But you're producing films to say, let's give a different message. It's a needed message. I mean, it's such in contrast to what we're seeing in our culture. I mean, the last 18 months, if that hasn't convinced people that we're under God's judgment, that
they need to wake up. People need to wake up. People need to speak up. I find everybody, we're at a serious tipping point right now. And I really believe America still, for the most part, is more conservative than they are liberal.
Oh, yeah.
But because of the press, because of movies, because of our politicians, the beating down over and over and over again, people are afraid. Open up your bloody mouth. If you're worried about being oppressed, if you're worried about being, taken off of Facebook and Twitter, they're going to take you down eventually anyway. So you might as well start speaking up now and waking up to the fact that this country is becoming a totally different place than what the founding fathers made it up to be. We were founded on Judeo-Christian values, and now we're sitting at Ivy League schools that have been around for hundreds and hundreds of years. They're the students saying, we got to take this God stuff down on all the buildings now. I mean, it's just, erasing history does nothing. Every country has good and bad history. Every country. And to sit there and rip down statues and rip down, I mean, this is why we're going to be repeating history, because we're trying to get rid of it.
Yeah. I mean, it's, we are living, we're saying people, we need to wake up. They talk about being woke. They're asleep. I mean, they're totally not realizing what's going on. I grew up a generation after the Holocaust. I grew up going to Hebrew school 3 times a week. And then on Sunday, it was something where we were taught what the Holocaust was. We were taught so we could recognize the signs, because, we were always being told by the rabbis and the teachers, it's going to happen again. You got to know how to see the signs. And I've been saying this for 2 decades. The signs are here. It's just not going to be the Jewish people anymore. It's going to be the Christians. And we're seeing it. And the fact is, we're seeing the same behavior that happened countless times before, shutting down any speech you don't let me. They can take the president of the United States and remove him from Twitter, the president,
I know,
and say, well, he shouldn't be allowed to speak on the official White House channel, right? Because they don't like his politics. That's, and people are saying, the people that sit there and say, well, this is good. Well, you're going to say it's good until they silence you. They're just silencing the conservatives now.
Yeah.
But the people who really suffer under it is those that what Stalin would refer to as the useful idiots, the mass that don't think about
what they are. Yeah.
And they're just being used for someone else's agenda.
Yeah. Well, Lenin even said back, during the Bolshevik Revolution years, back in 1915 to 25 and stuff, he called them useful idiots, right? As you call them. And he said the main thing, the best way to control people is through education. Well, hello, what are we doing on our public education system right now? It's been going on for decades, but it's just accelerated the last 10 years. And COVID really opened up to families, which I wish they'd wake up to see what are they doing. Why can't we put cameras in all the schoolrooms? What is it that they're hiding? It's ridiculous that they can't have cameras in there. We got cameras in the White House. We got cameras in
cameras.
Congress.
Cameras required for all the police.
Oh no, cameras are everywhere, but don't have it in here. We don't want people. We want to, indoctrinate your kids and teach them about having sex at 9 years old. I mean, it's crazy what we're doing in this country, and we're allowing it to happen. People, please wake up, because it's stupid. I mean, talking about the cancel culture. I don't know who these punks are, but I mean, I've already been losing jobs left and right, speaking events and appearances, because maybe 5 people call in. No, if you have that jerk there, we're going to do this. And they listen to them and they cave in. Yeah. These guys now have control over my life. Why can't they know who I am? Why can't I meet these people face to face? Not looking for a fight. I would like to have a conversation. Seriously, I'd like to have a conversation. Okay, why do you hate me? Why do you want to take me down? Why can't I have a voice, but you can have a voice? Honest to God, I think if you did a profile on these people, you're going to find them, they don't like themselves. They're unhappy with their lives. They probably came from broken homes, broken relationships. They look in the mirror and there's nothing but disdain for themselves. So, misery loves company. That's why I want to drag all of us down in that hole with them. That's the only way that makes them feel better. It's just fueling that anger and that fire, which is just sad to me. I mean, we should pray for these guys. And at the same time, I'm like, what a bunch of bozos. And it's crazy. It's unfortunate.
Well, that's something I wanted to ask you, Kevin, because you alluded to it earlier, the hypocrisy of Hollywood that should be tolerant and embrace all things, but yet they don't. When it comes to the hostility against Christians, do you think that it is primarily driven by an atheistic worldview? They just hate God and therefore they hate you? Or is it because you represent a certain sense of morality that they don't want to have to be faced with because they want to embrace their debauchery? Or is it maybe a mix of both? They hate God, they hate the morality?
I think it's a combination of both those things easily. When Let There Be Light came out, which I told you guys about, we opened up #2 per screen average up against a $300 million Thor Ragnarok movie. Okay. Here's a little $2.3 million movie that we're #2 per screen average. I got a call the Monday after opening weekend from Netflix. They called me and I had 3 meetings with them at their offices in Hollywood. Okay. And they said, we want to work with you. We want to open an inspirational division. I said, great. I got the product, I got the scripts, I got TV series, I got everything. Sent them the stuff. They're going, I don't know. And then my last meeting with them in person, I just said, guys, get past your ideology. What do there's 80 million households out there. There's 80 million households out there that want the kind of product that I put out. Why don't you just laugh all the way to the bank to a stupid Christians? Okay. But why don't we, it's weird. It's like it's called show business, not show. It is a business. Yeah. They can scream socialism all they want, but it's capitalism that made Zuckerberg a wealthy guy, right? And Bezos a wealthy guy. But I love these billionaire socialists because they can live like socialists, but they don't. They live like capitalists. So
the pragmatism of profit only stops when it becomes Christian.
Their goal right now is to destroy the middle class, and they're doing it. They said that 65% of the businesses, small businesses, will never come back now because of the COVID shutdowns. Because Costco was something that we needed to have out there. But like the mom and pop grocery store for 60 years and 3 generations of families, they had to close that down. That wasn't essential. But Target was essential. Come on, guys. It's so blatantly obvious what they're doing here. And once again, people need to wake up.
They created many new billionaires with COVID. And
Sure.
you look at a guy like Bezos, who he gets divorced, loses half of his wealth, and within 1 year of COVID doubles. And by 18 months, he's tripled what he was worth.
Yeah, because everybody's going to Amazon ordering online because they don't want to go in the store because they say, stay home. I think I just read that he bought 600 acres on the island of Kauai. It's either him or Zuckerberg, one of those two guys. I'm going, oh, okay.
Well, you have Black Lives Matter, who they say they're trained Marxists, and what are they? They now have millions of dollars in homes, not homes, because they had to have many.
I printed out their manifesto, and they took it down since then. Yes. They agreed to being Marxists. They said they want to get rid of God. They want to break up the nuclear family. I mean, everything is there. And people sit there, Coca-Cola and all these Delta. I mean, people throw millions of dollars at these guys because they don't want to be called a racist.
So here's the thing. And we did several shows dealing with their principles and whatnot. But here's the thing. They've raised over $2 billion. And yet their organization has supported $2 billion of insurable damage in the cities.
Yeah.
And, they're being sued. The national group is being sued on the question of where's all the money going, because the individual states are not getting it.
It's amazing to me that something that evil is able to raise kind of the money they're raising. That's all it does is spread more evil and hate. And here I am begging to get $2 million to make a good movie that has a positive thing. I'm not whining here, but it just blows my mind how the culture has changed into such a satanic, evil arena of hatred. But anyway, guys, I got to wrap this up.
No, we appreciate it. So how can folks find out more about you? You mentioned the fan page. How can folks, check out some of the stuff that you're doing, get more involved in some of the movies you're producing?
Sure. Well, it's kevinsorbo.net, but we've incorporated that into sorbostudios.com. So if you go to sorbostudios.com, you'll see all of my stuff. See all my wife's stuff. As you mentioned, she's a homeschool advocate. She has a lot of speaking on it. She's got books on it. Her latest book is called Words for Warriors, which is a really wonderful book as well. I did a follow-up to my book, True Strength, that we wrote together called True Faith. So people check those things out if they want to get an autographed copy. But more to come. I just finished the Reagan movie with Dennis Quaid. He plays the president. I play as pastor. And I mentioned the next Left Behind movie. So I'm staying busy, and knock on wood, guys. But God bless you guys. And
thanks for coming on. Maybe we'll have you back. Maybe we'll have you back in February for your next movie.
Love it. All right, guys.
Thanks.
God bless.
Thanks.
Bye now.
Take care.